Welcome back to Take Care Time, the tales and the exhales of caregivers. I'm your host, Beverly Dance. And welcome to something brand new. This is the exhale. If you've been listening to this show for a while, you already know the name comes straight from our tagline, the tales and the exhales. The tales of the stories, the narrative episodes, the letters that you send in, and we turn those into interesting stories, all of that. The Delores, the Cindy, the Trina, the ones that pull you in and make you feel something, the ones that educate you about caregiving issues. All of those things are in the tales. And this is the other half of the show, the exhales. The exhales are supposed to be at the end of every tale. So this is our first exhale. And I had planned to do this on video in a new space that I'm creating, but the space is not quite done yet. We're almost there. I have a pretty shelf up. I have a nice chair and a nice blanket. I just don't have my rug and all the lighting yet. And I've just been kind of lagging on that. You know, life happens. As a caregiver, life happens and you kind of get set back. Because I have to remember, I'm not just a podcast host. I'm not just a business owner. I am also a caregiver. So, let's exhale together. I want to start by telling you that this series, the Wait, Did I Say Hospice, was not just a story that someone sent in. It was Delores' story for sure, but it just resonated so much with me. I have had 3 people very close to me who have benefited from hospice, if you want to use the word benefit. You know, I recently lost my sister to glioblastoma, and she was on hospice. So I've seen it up close. So I know what kind of a benefit that hospice can bring to a family, what kind of peace it can bring to a family. My parents were both on hospice. They both died at home. Excuse me, I'm getting choked up thinking about that. They both died at home and hospice would come in. So I want to be honest with you. I'm not quite ready to tell my sister's story yet. I don't know if I will ever be, or if I am, when will that be? But I do feel like glioblastoma just itself deserves to be told. When you hear glioblastoma, a lot of times you got to run to Google and try to figure out what the heck is that? What did she say? But yeah, it is a very aggressive brain cancer. So I'm hoping that one day that I can put some light on her story, or just, if it's not her story, just glioblastoma, it might be someone else's story. I would love to do that, but I probably would cry for the whole thing if I did it right now. I'm just being honest with you. Aside from that, I did want to go ahead and do Delores' story about hospice. And if you were listening to the series, you heard Delores talking through me. She was in her casket at her own funeral. Hospice was the last thing that I saw my sister on before she passed away. When you sign up for hospice and you have a death at home, and I'm not sure how it works in every state, but I do know for the 2 states, my parents were in Alabama. They passed away in Alabama. My sister passed away in Tennessee. The hospice did come in and take care of declaring the person dead. I watched them do that for my mom. I wasn't actually on site when my sister was declared dead. But they fill out all the information, and then they have someone come and pick up the body. I'm not sure if you guys knew that, but that's something that the family does not have to scramble around oh my God, what do we do now? Because that's not something for 911. That's something that hospice does. And so, yeah, they're on call 24 hours a day, and that's what they do. You know, if you need them, they're there for you. You heard in the story, Dolores's team, she had a whole team. She had a nurse. She had people that came out every day. People will come out and sit and comfort you, comfort your family. It's not just for the person who is ill and transitioning. It is also for the family. You heard that in the story. So, because hospice was where I lived for the last stretch of my sister's life, It was the nurses who came to her home. I remember she called me one day and she told me somebody had gave her a bath. She didn't know who it was. Her brain was really messed up at that point. At first, it alarmed me. I'm like, what? Someone gave you a bath? And so it was a hospice worker. They had came out and they gave her a bath. And they also gave her one while I was there in person. And they gave her a bath right there in her bed, cleaned her up, and got her smelling good and everything with a lot of care. They're very, very experienced with what they do, and my hat's off to them because I would cry through that job. But they have probably seen multiple hundreds of hospice deaths. She had sat with multiple people on hospice and their families. That's how I should say it. Delores, let me tell that story sideways. She was a character. Through humor, through a woman narrating her own death from inside of her casket. That's where we were with this story. So if you haven't listened to the story, go back and listen to episodes 1, 2, 3, and 4. It is Delores narrating. She's already passed away. Like I said, she's at her funeral. And so there was some humor in it, and I try to make it light because death is really a heavy load to carry. I tried to make the story not so you're crying through it, but, there were some parts that I even teared up. So, yeah, go back and listen to the episodes and then come to the exhale, because this is where we just exhale and let it all go. So, I think me writing in her wry voice, her opinions about paint colors and grudges and lemon cookies gave me a way to sit with something enormous without being crushed by it. And I hope it did for you too. I think that is what humor does in grief. It does not minimize the weight. It gives you a place to sit down for a few seconds so you can pick it back up and keep carrying it, because it's really heavy. But what I would like for you to keep, if you listen to all 4 episodes, there are a few things I hope you are carrying with you now. I want to name them directly without a story wrapped around them, just so they are unmistakably clear. The first thing is Jerome's question. He asked, who is taking care of you? If you are the Hannah in your family right now, the one with the binder, the one who knows every phone number and every medication, every appointment time, I want you to ask yourself that question today. Not tomorrow. Ask that question today. And I want you to actually sit and answer instead of deflecting away from it. Because Hannah almost did. Because here is what I've learned, both from narrating this series and from living something similar. Managing is not the same as coping. You can be an excellent at the first one and still be quietly drowning in the second. Nobody will necessarily notice, because when you manage well, everything looks fine from the outside. That is exactly why someone needs to ask the question directly. And if nobody does, I'm asking you right now, who is taking care of you? The second thing is the myth about hospice. Like I said before, and I'll say it again, because I think it bears repeating as many times as it takes to actually sink in. Hospice is not about giving up. It is not a surrender. It is not the end of fighting. It is a change in what you're fighting for. From fighting to extend life at any cost, to fighting for comfort, for dignity, for the kind of last Sunday morning that Delores got to have, tea too strong, crossword in pen, roses by the window. If someone you love is approaching that conversation, or if you are approaching it yourself, I hope Delores' story gave you a little more courage to walk toward it instead of away from it. The third thing is smaller, but I think it matters just as much. The living piece is yours. Whatever that means for you, a garden, a wine batch, a crossword and pen, whatever that thing is that reminds you in the middle of caregiving that you are still a full person and not just a role. Protect that thing. Tend it. It is not selfish. It is survival. Before we move into our Q&A, I want to speak directly to one specific person who might be listening today. If you are standing right now at the edge of that conversation, if a doctor has used the word or is about to use that word, or you can feel it coming in the careful way that they have started phrasing things, I want you to hear this from me, one caregiver to another. You are not failing anyone by considering hospice. You're not giving up on the person you love. You are choosing with everything in you to make whatever time is left as full and as dignified as it can possibly be. And I really mean that. This is not defeat. It is one of the most loving decisions a person can make. And you do not have to make it alone. There is a whole team waiting for you the moment you call. A nurse with good tissues in her pocket. A social worker who will ask you the question nobody else asks. A chaplain, if you want one. A 24-hour line, so 3 a.m. never has to be faced by yourself. The team exists because of people like Dame Cicely Saunders and Florence Wald and a man named David Tasma who left 500 pounds and one sentence that changed everything. I will be the window in your home. That window is still open. It is waiting for you if you need it. I want to shift over to the Q&A because I did get some questions and I want to answer those questions. These are the things I imagine many of you were wondering as you listen to the series, and I want to start building the habit of answering them here on the exhale at the end of every series going forward. I should have started that before. I think I did do a Q&A like over a year ago, but I want to do that after every series because people do have questions. If you have a question for a future Exhale segment, you can always email me at podcast@takecaretime.com, and we'll eventually get to your question. Whatever the subject of your question, I'll try to put it with a story going forward. So our first question is, how did you decide to tell Delores' story from inside the casket? Because it was an unusual choice. Honestly, it came from wanting to give the dying person a voice that they rarely get in these stories. Most of what you hear about hospice comes from the caregiver side, which matters enormously. But I kept thinking about the person at the center of it, be thinking and never get to say. So I just kind of switched up a few things in addition to the names. The casket framing, it lets Delores say everything. All the things she noticed and never mentioned, all the love she felt and sometimes struggled to express out loud. I wanted her to have the last word, literally, in a way most people never get. Okay, next question. Is Hannah's binder a real thing that people actually do? I can tell you for sure, binders are my thing. I just got a binder yesterday for my daughter's day program. I didn't suggest it, but when they handed me the binder, because my daughter is nonverbal, this is perfect. And on it, it has her name and it says communication binder. So yes, absolutely yes. And I hear about some version of Hannah's binder constantly from caregivers. Some people use binders, some people use spreadsheets, some people use notebooks or apps, but the instinct is universal. When something feels completely out of control, organizing the pieces you can control becomes a way of coping. I swear it does. You can try it. If you are a Hannah or if you were me and you have a binder, there is no shame in that. It is a completely reasonable response to an unreasonable situation. Get you a binder. Get more than one. You can get like a 6-pack, all different colors at Amazon. Get a binder. So the next question is hospice really covered by insurance? I always assumed it would be extremely expensive. I tell you, if it wasn't covered by insurance, it probably would be a cost that most people couldn't afford. And that is such an important question. I'm glad it came up. For the vast majority of American families, hospice is covered almost entirely through the Medicare hospice benefit, which Congress created back in 1982. And most private insurance plans include similar coverage. The financial fear that keeps families from even asking about hospice is, for most people, simply not matched by the reality. I always encourage people to ask their care team directly about coverage specific in their situation, but please do not let assumed cost stop you from having the conversation. If you don't ask, it's already no. So ask. It's worth it. The next question is, how do I even start the hospice conversation with a parent's doctor if nobody has brought it up yet. You can ask directly, something as simple as, given where things stand, is it time to start talking about hospice? They actually might bring it up before you do. Doctors are used to this question, and most will welcome it because they may have been waiting for a sign that the family is ready to hear it. You are allowed to be the one who starts that conversation. You don't have to wait for permission. I think the harder question was, how do you discuss it with the sick person? Because they don't want to hear hospice, because they already have in their minds what they think hospice is. But I definitely would do it. I personally would do it with a doctor in the room so the doctor could help them explain it. I was just thinking, it would be nice if the hospice team could have been in the room too, but what if the person says no? Then oh boy, where do we go from there? So the next question is, what is the difference between hospice and palliative care? I always seem to get confused. That's another great question, and you are far from the only one who mixes these two up. Palliative care is comfort-focused care that can be provided at any stage of a serious illness alongside curative treatment. You do not have to be dying to receive palliative care. Hospice is specifically for people whose doctors believe they have 6 months or less to live if the illness runs its expected course, and it involves stepping away from curative care treatment toward comfort-focused care exclusively. Think of palliative care as an umbrella and hospice as a particular kind of palliative care at the end of life specifically. For my sister to choose hospice, she had to stop having chemotherapy and radiation because there's no curative care. It's just hospice care. Okay, the next question is, did narrating this series help you process your own grief? That's a good question. I think yes, though maybe not in the way people would expect. I did not resolve anything. Grief does not really work that way, but it gave me a container for some of what I was carrying. Delores' story let me think about things sideways that I was not ready to really think about. And honestly, hearing from so many people in the group, people who recognize their own Hannah or their own Helen or their own hospice nurse in the story, that connection helped more than narrating the story itself. Knowing this story landed somewhere real for other caregivers made the whole thing worth it, and the vulnerability it took to even speak it into a mic. Okay, that is all we have time for today. Keep your questions coming, and if I have any other hospice-related questions, I will fit them into another one of our episodes. Before I let you go, I want to mention the Take Care Time Respite Box one more time. This whole series has been about the living piece, the part of you that exists outside of caregiving. And our current respite box is available at takecaretime.com. That's takecaretime.com. You can give it to yourself or you can give it as a gift. If you give it to yourself, you have earned nothing and you deserve everything. And both of those things can be true at the same time. This has been our first exhale. Thank you for trusting me with something this personal. Thank you for walking with me through Delores' story and letting me talk to you directly like this, without a character standing between us. Keep sending your stories and questions to podcasts@takecaretime.com. That is podcast@takecaretime.com. Our next story is already taking shape, and I can't wait to share it with you. Until then, take care.